gives his take on this week's movie releases in the Film Review. Hello, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to BBC News. The Australia cricket captain Steve Smith has been given a one-match ban and fined 100% of his match fee after admitting he knew about a plan to tamper with the ball during a test match. Batsman Cameron Bancroft has also been fined 75% of his match fee after he admitted interfering with the ball during the third test against South Africa. The International Cricket Council has released a statement saying the decision made by the Australian team to act in this way is clearly contrary to the spirit of the game, risks causing significant damage to the integrity of the match, the players and the sport itself. The statement goes on, the game needs to have a hard look at itself. We have to raise the bar across all areas. This report now from our correspondent in Sydney, Phil Mercer.
Play has resumed in Cape Town with Australia fighting to avoid defeat in the third test. But off the field, some of its players are battling to save their careers. They've been caught cheating, and back home the nation is reeling with shock and embarrassment. Just how Cameron Bancroft thought he could get away with tampering with the ball, using sticky tape and dirt in front of dozens of TV cameras, is unclear.
I saw an opportunity to potentially use some tape, get some granules from the rough patches on the wicket and try to change the ball condition.
His captain Steve Smith, who was part of the conspiracy, has agreed to stand down for the remainder of the match, along with his deputy David Warner.
I'm not proud of what's happened. It's not within the spirit of the game, my integrity, the team's integrity.
Both men will continue to play under an interim skipper. There is, though, mounting pressure for Smith to quit. Cricket Australia, the governing body, is sending 2 senior officials to South Africa to investigate the scandal. The Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull said he shared his country's disappointment.
It seemed completely beyond belief that the Australian cricket team had been involved in cheating. After all, our cricketers are role models, and cricket is synonymous with fair play.
On social media, there was more disbelief and anger. The former Australian skipper Michael Clarke hoped it was all just a bad dream, while other retired players said the game had taken a devastating blow. Tampering with the ball using so-called foreign objects is strictly prohibited in cricket. There are legal ways to alter the condition of one side of the ball to help it swing or move unpredictably through the air. In this case, Australia has crossed the line. Cricket is Australia's national sport, and many fans could well be asking themselves one simple yet searching question of Steve Smith and some of his teammates. Just what were they thinking? Phil Mercer, BBC News, Sydney.
Well, amid the controversy, the third test between South Africa and Australia continues in Cape Town. Aussie fans mixed with home supporters at the iconic Newlands ground. And as both sides digested the significance of yesterday's events, this is what some fans had to say.
Disappointed with the whole thing. The captain standing down was the only thing he could do.
There's a lot of young cricketers or inspiring cricketers watching the game, and I think it's bad for sport. I personally think they did it because they felt the pressure.
Well, I'm one person myself who's not waving their flag today because of the unsportsmanlike behaviour that was carried out by our team yesterday. It's a bit of a personal protest.
They didn't even really admit that they cheated. They just said they thought they saw an advantage. It's a bad example for kids. I think it's just a terrible thing to do.
The government says it's creating more than 3,000 training places on midwifery courses in England over the next 4 years. It says it's the largest ever increase in the number of NHS midwives and maternity staff. But there are concerns that this may not be enough to solve acute staffing problems, as our health correspondent Catherine Burns explains.
Currently, women can see several different midwives during their pregnancy. But the Department of Health and Social Care wants to change that. It's pledging that by 2021, most women will have a named midwife throughout. That continuity is expected to be safer for mothers and babies. So increase in training places, starting with 650 extra places next year.
If we're going to have this, what we call the continuity of carer, the same team of midwives, we think that could potentially save 700 babies' lives every year, potentially prevent 500 babies being born with brain damage. But it needs more midwives.
But until last year, trainee nurses and midwives in England got a bursary. That was scrapped last summer, so now they have to pay tuition fees like other students.
If you try and deliver continuity of carer without sufficient midwives, all you get is burnt out midwives. So we do need those numbers, and that's why we welcome these extra 3,000, but it's going to take a while for those numbers to come through.
There already aren't enough NHS midwives in England. Estimates put the shortfall at around 3,500. Over the last 5 years, the number of midwives leaving or retiring has outstripped the numbers of newly qualified joiners. The government has announced a new pay deal for NHS staff in England, with an increase of at least 6.5% over 3 years. That may go some way towards dealing with staffing issues, but unless the NHS gets better at keeping staff, the extra training places may only have a limited impact. Catherine Burns, BBC News.
A 14-year-old girl is in a serious but stable condition in hospital after a group of youths were run down by a car on a pavement in Glasgow. Police say the silver Vauxhall